Here we have the auxiliary send section. On this desk we have 8 independent auxiliary sends, and these can be used for a variety of things, such as setting up a headphone mix or sending signal to an effects unit such as reverb, etc. And all 8 are identical. They are numbered bottom to top, so this is aux 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Looking more closely, here we can see aux 1, aux 2. The send level, obviously, and 2 buttons is what each send has. Again, this has an on button, so it's important that you remember that it has to be turned on in order to work, so you need to press that button down. The send level will then obviously affect how much of that signal is going to, for example, headphones. And in actual fact, on this desk, in the way this patch bay is set up, aux 1 and 2 are normalised to the headphone amps. So aux 1 will send it to the left hand ear, and aux 2, when it's switched on, will send it to the right hand ear. We have the pre buttons, which place the auxiliary sends pre the fader. So with these 2 buttons pressed in this particular case, it means that these auxiliary sends are independent of the fader, which means we can adjust the fader and it won't affect, for example, our headphone mix. If, on the other hand, you're using this as a send for an effect unit such as reverb, you would want them to be post-fader, so that once you've set your reverb amount, any adjustment to the fader would also take the reverb with it. These 2 buttons are to do with the inserts. With a desk of this quality, the inserts which are available on the patch bay are not connected normally. This saves the signal having to flow to and from the patch bay all the time. If you want to use an insert on a particular channel, you need to press the red button in. That then effectively connects the wiring through to the patch bay and allows you to connect a device as an insert using the send and return. The black button, which is marked PREQ or PREQ or pre-EQ, basically moves where the insert point is. In other words, with the button out, the insert falls after the EQ section on the desk, which we'll come to in a moment, and with the button pressed in, the insert point is before the EQ section. So, for example, if you're inserting a compressor, you'd probably want to put the compressor pre-EQ, so that any changes in the equalization weren't going to be counteracted by the compressor itself. Here's the famous NEVE EQ. Very simple actually, it's just a simple 4-band EQ, but it's got a particularly nice sound to it, and it is analog, and it's what a lot of people pay a lot of money for, I guess. Basic 4-band EQ, and we have a gain and a frequency for each band, and we have basically high frequency, high mid, low frequency. The high frequency can either be peak EQ or can be shelf EQ when you press the shelf button in, as can the low frequency can be peak or shelf. There's an in button at the bottom of the EQ section which needs to be obviously in for the EQ to be having an effect. So we can sweep the frequencies. You'll notice that the gain seems to be kind of upside down. In other words, the knobs point down rather than up. We're probably used to seeing knobs that point up. The direction is the same, so it's still anti-clockwise for less and clockwise for more, but they've done it so that when you're looking at the desk at an angle, you can see where you're positioning the controls. And I think it makes a lot of sense. And it's the same with the frequencies. They're rolling around the bottom of the knob rather than the top, because if you think about it, with other desks you tend to have to stand up and look over the top of the knob to see what you're doing. The way NEVE have done it is they've printed the actual numbers and so on underneath and then flip the actual knobs over. But they're doing the same job in turn the same direction. Here we have the mute, pan and solo section. So each channel has a pan control, which again needs to be switched in to use it. The general principle with the NEVE is if something doesn't need to be in the circuit, then let's switch it out and not use it. And a pan control is a good example of this, because unless you're doing a mix where you want to position things in a particular place, The chances are you just want a channel to go to a particular output or not at all or both, so you wouldn't need the pan, you just use the routing buttons. However, you can put in the pan, and then as long as you've got two positions select on the outputs or the groups, you can pan between those two routing positions using the variable pan control as normal. Below that you've got a PFL and a solo button. So PFL is a pre-fed listen which connects the channel onto those small speakers I mentioned earlier and doesn't affect the other channels. Solo, on the other hand, kills all the other channels and just allows you to listen to that one channel on its own in the main speakers. You've then got the main on button, and this basically turns the channel on or off. It's an important button because when you're using a channel to record with, for example, feeding a mic in, then going to Pro Tools, this button needs to be on for that too. Okay, so it is important. The two red buttons below, above, marked A and B, are a primitive auto mute setup where you can basically press A buttons or B buttons on particular channels, then using a master A and B button in the center of the desk, switch on multiple mutes or switch off multiple mutes. In the day and age of Pro Tools and so on, this is pretty much not going to be used, but it's there for fun. And finally on the channel, we've got the fader, which I don't think I need to say anything about. The little green button at the top of the fader was an afterfit that was for an early automation system that this desk used to have. We don't have it on this desk, and therefore these green buttons don't serve any purpose.